Welcome, guys. It's race week, and this is the preview to the absolutely legendary circuit, Spa. Belgium is going to host the Grand Prix this weekend, and the championship battle is really hotting up. We've got some key questions to answer in this preview. We'll have my predictions. Let's get to it. Welcome, guys. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoy the video, please hit the like. In this preview, we've got 5 key questions to get into, and, well, you can give your thoughts in the comments on each question and your thoughts. We'll start with, the main man in this championship at the moment, and it's got to be Kimi Antonelli and his championship lead, because this kid was absolutely phenomenal. He was flying 5 race wins on the bounce. And the key question before he entered into this European season, especially from my side, was can he do better than he did last year? Because his European tour was shocking. He picked it up as they went away back into Baku. And last year it was performance drops. This year it's not his fault. And actually, in this year's results compared to the 3 Grand Prix that is suffered in so far in the European Tour, they've been better results, and believe it or not, last year he had 3 DNFs, this year just the 2 in Barcelona and Silverstone, and the key difference really has been his performance. Last year he was off the back DNFs, never his fault, and more so this season as well, but the performance has been absolutely mega. He's been ahead of his teammate. He's been beating his teammate in every one of the Grand Prix where he's been unfortunate and got the DNFs. And so when it comes to them 5 or 7 Grand Prix that we've got to say, there's probably after Monza, isn't it, where he'll then be away out of this 7 Grand Prix that I'm talking about, all the European leg. He's still got 4 races to go where he can still do better than he did last season, because he still had 4 shockers last year. So more questions still to be answered. But the 3 Grand Prix gone, his responses were absolutely phenomenal. He DNF'd in Barcelona, not his fault, but he got the job done, got the pass on George Russell. In Silverstone, he was pretty much on for the race win. I don't think there was really ever in doubt if the car kept going. And the key question for him really is he pushing too hard? Is it just this Mercedes is really fragile? All the bad luck was on George Russell's side of the garage. Now it's Kimi Antonelli's turn, but it's turned so quickly, hasn't it? That's the most unexpected thing. Me personally expected these DNFs to sort of slowly creep in. Might happen more towards the back end, middle of the season, but it's almost like George has had his turn straight into Kimi Antonelli, and he needs to almost, I don't know what he can do personally. He's just got to keep his chin up, and I think that's the biggest thing. And his championship lead now is really under threat, and will he still win this championship? Is he still the man? And that's the key question here. For me, I think so, but George Russell is doing almost what Lando Norris in some extent, isn't it? He's keeping Kimi Antonelli now in touching distance. The gap was 60 plus points to George Russell. It's now just 25. Lewis Hamilton 32 behind Kimi Antonelli, and the Ferraris are creeping up into this championship battle. So he's got to be wary. He's got to do whatever he can. Is he driving too aggressive? Is there something that he can do to try and get this car to the end? I think the reality is Mercedes just need to fix your effing car, as Christian Horner said it quite politely to them, isn't it, when they had the porpoising? And so I don't think Kimi can do any more than he's done at the moment. He's been super impressive, the young Italian, and he's shown that he's fast enough, and Mercedes now need to deliver for him. They failed him. George Russell, on the other hand, can be pretty happy with his Mercedes turnaround to some extent. He's got the look that definitely shown in Silverstone, and to be in touching distance when your teammate's been this much better than you is probably just credit to his consistency, and obviously the luck that's gone his way and not Kimi's way. But let's see what they can do in Spa, and I think this will be one of Mercedes' strongest circuits, and it's not just because of the long straights, because we've seen in Silverstone, George Russell saying the Ferraris are faster down the straights. It's the recovery of the battery, and that has been their core key strength, is what we've seen in their performances. And this is going to be a battery hungry circuit. We're going to see the issues that we've seen in Silverstone, which I'll get to later in the video. And I think that'll be the key strength for Mercedes. Watch out for Kimi Antonelli. He really needs a clean weekend. If he gets that, I think victory's his. If he doesn't, and almost like a giveaway to my predictions, isn't it, at the moment? But they might change. Stick around. But he's got to beat his teammate. I think that's an absolute must for him. He's got to get this car to the end of the Grand Prix. And this one, I think, will be easier or more difficult than you might think. Spa, although might be dry, the weather can change in an instant. We've had safety cars in every Grand Prix so far this season. We get like a 66% chance of safety car in Spa anyway. And with the way the cars have been dropping off, well, it's almost like a guarantee you're going to see a safety car this weekend. And you just got to hope for Kimi that it falls on the right side for him. Is Kimi still under pressure? Is the championship lead really in danger? With a 25-point lead, no. I think he'll still come away, and I think he'll come away and extend his championship points on his competitors this weekend. But he's just got to make sure he gets his car to the end of the Grand Prix. Question 2 is Ferrari, and was the Silverstone victory really a turning point? And I feel like we keep saying this a little bit because after Barcelona, that was the circuit where it shows you've got the car if you win around there. And they won. Lewis Hamilton won handsomely. He didn't win with a technicality, although Kimi Antonelli DNF'd. He had a 20-second lead. So they won on pure performance in Barcelona. But then came Austria and the shock where they were just absolutely nowhere. But then they bounced back and they took the victory in Silverstone. It would have been a 1-2. It was a double podium with a 1-3. Charles Leclerc, lucky to take the win in Silverstone. You create your own luck. They absolutely did that because they put Kimi under pressure. Both cars, quick off the start. And that pressure meant that Kimi had to push. It wasn't a smooth, sweet sailing race for Kimi Antonelli. He couldn't control the pace up ahead. He had to push that car to the absolute limit, and it broke. And if Ferrari can keep doing that, we know the Mercedes is fragile. And so that's been what's been really impressive about Ferrari this season. They have been aggressive pretty much on every step. Sometimes it's not worked for them. Sometimes it has. And when it has, it's come out beautifully. And I think that's been a huge change, a massive upturn. If you're a Ferrari fan like me, I know I'm here in the Merc Gate today, but a huge Ferrari fan. And so it's so refreshing and pleasing to see them fix the strategy issues that we've, just been ridiculing them for an absolute age. In Silverstone, I predicted them to do well. I got hammered in the comments with, I don't think so, because they're absolutely shocking in the high-speed corners. There's long straights. They're down on power. But they were actually really, really good, surprisingly good to many, even surprising to themselves. And I think that's the worry of where Ferrari are at the moment. And I think that's why the question still remains, have they turned the corner? Are they now in a championship battle with Mercedes? The points gap is nearly just 70-odd points, I think, to Mercedes at the moment in the Constructors' Championship. Lewis just 32 points behind. Charles is a little bit further behind. And they've got all this talk of, do Ferrari favour Lewis over Charles? I think that's far too early to say at the moment. But they've put themselves in a hell of a position, and around Spa, I expect them to go well again. Yes, they'll struggle down the Kemmel straight. The battery recharge issues, I don't think they're the strongest at that, but if they get it right, they're absolutely brilliant. But if they get it wrong, I think that's where the issues turn up. The sector 2 is, I think, where they'll be absolutely phenomenal. Medium, high-speed corners, tricky technical sector, Puon, where they'll be able to just push that little bit extra. They've got the aero confidence, and that's been crucial for them. They won't be able to hide many weaknesses around here. This is a little bit like Barcelona, although slightly bit more extreme in that the high long straights really expose you on the power side. The technical tricky sector 2 will really be their strength, I think, when it comes to this circuit. And so it's how they fare and how they get that balance right. And it's not just them. I think that's across the entire field. That is the big tricky thing about Spa, is you've got one high-speed circuit. So you can't just bolt a low downforce circuit on, a setup on, and you can't just go high downforce because you'll be a sitting duck down the Kemmel Straight. And with this battery hole thing flaring up, which I'll get to as well, who knows where they'll end up. And I think that's why this is another big weekend for Ferrari. If they can come and win here, well, I think we're in for a hell of a championship battle between Ferrari and Mercedes. They're not fragile. They've been absolutely brilliant on their reliability. And, well, with drivers like Charles Leclerc, with his stunning Silverstone lap, and we've seen a resurgent Lewis Hamilton, you wouldn't bet against Ferrari taking this championship to Mercedes. They've got two experienced, fast drivers, and that could be the difference that wins them a championship. It was a huge warning to Mercedes. They can't rest on their laurels. They've had a one weekend, I think, where they were faster than the Ferrari, but they've lost it. But Ferrari are the form team. They've won 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix. But it was Austria where they struggled. So let's see how they get on there. Question 3, and talking about Austria, it's got to be Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Max Verstappen's season has been really hard to understand at the moment. It's just been flashes of absolute brilliance and competitiveness, as we've seen from Red Bull. They bought that huge upgrade package in Austria, and they were flying. Max Verstappen in the hunt for a win, and we've not said that for an absolute age. So then it was suddenly like, oh, actually, Red Bull have still shown they've got something. They might be losing team personnel, but they can still build a car. And then came Silverstone, and it's all come sort of crashing back down to earth. We've had that horrible Q3 crash in Austria, which cost Max probably the win. And then we had the crash in Silverstone, which cost him a podium. And he can't afford, or they can't afford, anything like that around Spa. Now, rumours are that the FIA are going to investigate the Macarena wing and see if it's safe. They cannot afford to lose that thing, because that is an absolute weapon, that thing. So it's so critical. It'd be huge around Spa, especially down that long straight. So a lot of questions over Max Verstappen, and will he move to McLaren? Rumours about that. Helmut Marko's held a secret private talk with Jos Verstappen and Max Verstappen's manager. No comment was what he said on that. It was a private chat. But rumours are that Max has said he's going. And right now, the smoke and the rumour mill is all streaming out of McLaren's garage. It's where he's set to hedge, and I think that's really because his long-serving race engineer Gianpiero Lambiase is moving to McLaren, and rumours are he's going to be heading up that team, despite that not being official yet. But that's what Red Bull have just basically said is, Andrea Stella, watch your job, because GP's taken it. You might have not been told yet, but we're telling you now. So 28 is a long way away for GP. Will there be some sort of deal be agreed? McLaren said they're open to that, to get GP in early. I think Red Bull will be eager to hold on to him longer if Max is going to go as well. Max has got this clause in his contract to say if they're not competitive, he can go. He doesn't have to tell the team. He can make agreements and then just bring that surprise on Red Bull. So all the cards in Max Verstappen's favour on that one. Will he go to McLaren? He's got his best mate there, Lando Norris. I think he knows he's got the beating of this. Of Lando, that showed in the championship last year. I think there was almost a little bit too much respect from Norris to Verstappen. But it'll be a hell of a battle, and it'll be really, really good to see how they get on. I think the reluctance now might be is actually McLaren aren't that dominant force that we saw last year. The upgrade packages this year aren't working like they worked all the last couple of years. So things not being perfect in McLaren at the moment. But one thing we do know is that the brain drain in Red Bull is not happening. It's a completely different story in McLaren. The recruitment there has been absolutely brilliant. Really high profile signings across the whole technical side. They've been headed up by Andrew Stella, who's done an absolutely brilliant job. And if GP gets the job, I don't expect him to drop the ball. He's been absolutely brilliant. Max knows him well. He'll have someone in the team that can, will be head right up at the top, someone that will be listened to. So we'll see what happens on that front. And I think that's probably as much as I want to go into at the moment. Just big, strong rumours. And like in Formula One, if there's something signed with McLaren, we'll find out soon enough, as we did with the Lewis Hamilton Ferrari story, because that just leaked out, even though a handful of people only knew about that. They had to rush that rumour through. So we'll watch that. Coming back to Red Bull and Spa, well, we just don't know what we're going to get. They'll be absolutely brilliant down the straights. They've got this Macarena wing issue. If they can get over that with the FIA checking that, I'm sure they will. Ferrari might be a little bit concerned with that, but they've had no problems. So you can say, ours is safe. We've had no problems. Look at Red Bull. And the fact that they've had 2 crashes with that not closing properly is a safety concern. In Spa, it's a bigger safety concern, especially because you're going to have 5 straight modes in Spa, one before Eau Rouge. And if that doesn't close going up Eau Rouge, it's a huge, huge crash. So they might put extra measurements in place for this weekend. They absolutely do need a fix on that, because if they don't do that, they're going to be in serious trouble. I think they're going to be praying for mixed conditions at Red Bull for them to do well around this circuit. Max is an absolute monster driver. We've said that pretty much all season. Even when he looks out of it, you just can't question or doubt him. He would look nowhere in Silverstone and was on for a podium. So he's just always there. He's brilliant. Give him a car, he'll put it, or half a car even, he'll put it on pole position. So that's why you can't write him out. The Red Bull might be absolutely nowhere at the moment, but you can't write out Max Verstappen. The key question here for Red Bull is, I think they just need to show that they've got winning car performance. I don't think they're in this championship battle. I think Max knows that. There's been a lot of talk that, Max was only 100 points behind McLaren, leading the championship last season. I think everybody's forgetting this season is a very different season. Last year, everybody dropped and stopped bringing performance upgrades because 26 was such a big upgrade or change to the regulations. McLaren stopped work on that and nearly got found out and nearly lost the championship to Red Bull early doors. Red Bull did say that they're going to carry on bringing performance, but it's going to cost them this year. And is that enough to say, look, we nearly give you a championship winning car last year by just, and you knew we were going to sacrifice this. And is that enough to appease Max Verstappen? I think not. I think this is going to be another weekend where we get a moody Max Verstappen. Can they recover? I don't think they will this weekend. I think it's going to be another struggle. But you can never count Max Verstappen out. The power-hungry circuits are what's really driving Max Verstappen down. He's looking forward to the 27 regulations. It's almost as if he's given up this season. Not in the sense of his driving, but he knows, I think there's too much probably work to do to get this car right up there. But if there's a sniff, Max Verstappen, I think giving up is probably the wrong word. I feel bad saying that because Max Verstappen never gives up. We know that about him. He's an absolute beast. So we'll see what Verstappen can do, but I think this weekend will be a struggle for them. Question 4 is, will Spa expose the 2026 regulations? And I can answer that before going into any detail. It's going to be a big fat yes. Really, really interesting circuit, this one. 7 kilometers, the longest F1 circuit, only 44 laps, but every lap is going to be critical. It's nearly a 1 minute 44 lap. So watch how much slower this year will be. Interestingly enough, there's plenty of straight line modes. Deployment here is going to be the big issue. Watch out for that word, and how you use it and how you recover it, or how much you can recover around this circuit, is going to be the key to doing well. And I think that's why all the fingers are pointing at Mercedes going well around here. You can use it coming out of La Source up to Eau Rouge, down the Kemmel Straight, but if you use it all there, you're going to be a sitting duck from turn 14 all the way to the bus stop chicane. There's still plenty of straight lines and battery power you're going to need through there. I don't think you're going to get much use out of it through Sector 2. Watch out for Sector 2. Speeds are expected to be really, really slow. It's going to be an absolute shocker through there. F2 sort of speeds around Sector 2. So watch out for lap times through there. I think that really exposed these regulations, because half the power just comes from the energy side. And if you can't use it through corners, which you can't, you'll go off track. You've got less downforce as well than last year. It's just a recipe for disaster. This is probably one of the worst circuits for energy deployment, I think, like Monza. I think you've got more heavy braking zones in Monza than you do here. But they're just going to be two absolute stinkers when it comes to that. But we will get great racing. It's all about energy deployment. And I think it'll be different to Silverstone, because I think the energy mapping was different in Silverstone, because we literally had one free practice and we went straight into the sprint. And we got a very different sprint race to the main race. It all settled down after that. This weekend, we've got 3 FP3 sessions, so I think the engineers will work that out pre-race. If they don't, they'll be massively exposed come race day. So that's going to be another thing to watch out for. And it's all in the AI and the battery and how it thinks and how it consumes stuff, or whether you're quick or not. And that's been the real shame of these regulations and why so many fans hate it. But it's an absolutely cracking circuit, this one. The downforce levels are, well, crucial. Do you go for a low downforce setup so you can defend for your life down the Kemmel Straight and then suffer through Sector 2? Or do you just plan to have sort of a happy medium, but not the best of both worlds, where you still might be a sucker down the Kemmel Straight, but then reasonable in Sector 2? Or do you set up for Sector 2 so you can get away, pull up a pretty good lap time? And that's going to be the compromise, really. I think that's where I think Ferrari's strengths will come in, because they've got the best aero package. They can probably afford to drop a little bit downforce and still be quick in Sector 2, and then that will help them out down the long straights. Only my thoughts on that one. Let's see how it pans out this weekend in terms of tyres for this circuit. It's a C2, C3, C4, C2 the hardest, C4 the soft. Strategy is a one-stop strategy around here. Normally it's a medium hard, but you can do an aggressive two-stop. So if you see anyone start on the softs, they could potentially do a soft hard strategy. I don't think that's the right way to go, because you'll be open. But it could work if there's potential early safety cars and all that, because you get plenty of shenanigans around Spa. So we could see that two-stop, or you could have a soft, medium, and then a hard strategy option as well. That's probably the fastest way to do strategy around here. Weather conditions set to be dry. Temperatures low, though, 18, 19 degrees. As we know, it's set in the Ardennes Forest, so it's got a climate of its own. So we'll see how that one works around Spa. And the question 5 is, will the weather or the tyres decide this race, or will it be the safety car? I think this is a tricky one to answer. I think the tyres I don't think they always. I think energy deployment will decide this race. So I've almost answered that question straight away. C2 hard, C2 medium, C3 4 softs. It's really hard on its tyres, a little bit like Silverstone, just because of the high speed turns and the loads that go through the tyres on this circuit. Only Silverstone and Suzuka really produce sort of more overall stress on the tyres than Spa. High speed, long corners is going to be the real difficulty here. And the weather conditions and the safety car. So there's lots of things to think about when it comes to the weather, because it's got a mind of its own. If you are at the opposite end of the circuit and it's raining and you pit, but it's dry for the other 2/3 of this circuit, which happens in Spa, it's that kind of track. You're stuck. If you pit and pick the wrong tyre, it's crucial. So you've got to be really on your toes if you're a strategist around this circuit. And so I think they'll have loads of moduling going on with what, I think they do that all the time anyway. But this is, you get more exposed if you get it wrong around Spa. So key is get the right strategy. VSCs will fall for you if you're near the circuit, but if you've on the other end, by the time you pit, you might lose out. So there's going to be a lot of that. It's a long lap, so you'll see some really benefit from the VSCs, some not, whereas we've seen that somewhere in Austria, almost everybody can pit under the VSC. It's a really short lap at 1:05 or 1:10, but around Spa, it's a 1:44 and 45. We might see 47, 48. It will be a slower lap time than we've seen last year, especially with the slow Sector 2. I'm praying we still get corners like Le Combe and Pouon that are still exciting to watch. But if it is dry and you pit for intermediates, the rain passes, it just absolutely chucky. You just don't know what you're going to get. And I really kind of hope we get a wet session. So we've sort of ducked and dived away from that so far in the 26th season. Everybody has been scared to death of wet conditions. I think they experienced it a little bit in pre-season testing. Ferrari seemed to do well in that, but aside from that, nobody else has really got much data on it. And the ones that have driven in the wet conditions have said it's absolutely scary as hell, especially with this whole power on off sort of computer telling where you've got power and not got power. It's got a mind of its own. We could just see things really, really, go off the wall on this one if we do get wet conditions. So something to watch out for on that one. Will it decide the race, the tyres and the weather? I don't think so this weekend. I think energy deployment will be the key this weekend, and I think it'll probably just hang dry enough. No point getting too excited with that one. On to the predictions review. It's going to be a tough one because we've got some drivers coming in that have been absolutely brilliant. Charles Leclerc won. Lewis Hamilton's been flying. You can't doubt Kimi Antonelli. Max Verstappen is going to be right up there. But for P3, I'm going for Lewis Hamilton to start P3 on the grid here this weekend. P2, I'm going for Kimi Antonelli. And for pole position, I'm going for the recent race winner, Charles Leclerc, because he's been absolutely flying. He's stuck it on pole twice now. I think one was a sprint, and he's won in Silverstone, so the confidence is there. He is the qualifying man, and I think the Ferraris will be there and thereabouts with the Mercedes. I think they'll be flying, so watch out for that. That is my top three. Get in the comments on that one. What's your top three for qualifying? For the race predictions, I think Lewis will finish in third place. I think it'll be Charles Leclerc second. But I've got the young Italian to finish in the top position. Kimi Antonelli, he's been the man to beat. Mercedes, I think what we've seen over longer runs and the way Kimi managed that tyre in Silverstone for 35 laps was absolutely phenomenal with that pace. The kid was just outrageous. It was just... the only thing that's going to set him back is DNFs and a really unlucky safety car, virtual safety car. And that can happen around this circuit, but it being a straight race, and that's a big but around this one, I think Kimi Antonelli will take it. And that's why I said early doors. I almost gave my predictions away. I think it will be it'll just be a fantastic race weekend, this one. And I'm still sort of doubtful of them predictions. So get in there, comments for your top 3 for qualifying and the race. Ones to watch, so far it's been the Red Bulls. They've been absolutely brilliant. They've been sort of the number 5 team, haven't they, at the moment? Audi have been closer, and so my tip of ones to watch really is between Audi and Red Bull, and I'm going for Audi. They've been super impressive as their first F1 season. I think they'll go well around here, so watch out for them. Ones to struggle, I think again it's going to be Williams. Watch them being Q3 or out in Q1 sort of territory this weekend. The heavy car still problems. They're bringing upgrades, but they're slow, and they've just sort of gone, let's scrap this whole thing of small upgrades and go for a Spec B car. We're not going to no sort of timelines like Aston Martin of when we're going to see that. Talking of Aston Martin, positive news if you're an Aston Martin fan. The big upgrade is coming in Hungary for the aero, about 70 points of downforce, equivalent to about 2.5 seconds, close to in terms of lap time, but everybody else isn't staying still, so watch out on how far they jump forward with that upgrade. And for the Dutch Grand Prix after the summer break, they'll have their engine, a new engine from Honda. So big things coming for Aston Martin. A key question of whether they can retain someone like Fernando Alonso and show that all that effort and the money that's gone into that team has been worthwhile. So some positives to look forward on that one. Will this be a defining weekend in the championship? Definitely not. There's still a long way to go. We've seen it change. The advantages shrunk for Kimi Antonelli. We've seen Ferrari come into the play this weekend. We've seen Red Bull come into the play. Or not this weekend, Ferrari. Obviously, the last couple of weekends, we've seen Red Bull come into the play in Austria. And I think potentially that's what might let Mercedes off the hook, is the fact that we are getting... Of the 3 Grand Prix, it was 2 Ferrari wins, but then we got a strong Red Bull performance. So let's see what happens on that. If Red Bull can bring some upgrades, appease Max Verstappen, we'll get an absolute cracking Grand Prix in Spa. I, for one, cannot wait for the action to get going. And if you've enjoyed the preview, like I said, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the video, hit the like. Let me know what your thoughts are for the Spa Grand Prix. It should be an absolute cracker. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Oh, and I will be doing the watch-alongs for Saturday and Sunday. You can put a notify me on for that, starting about 10 minutes before each event will the live stream. So join me for the watch-alongs as well. See you next time.